Welcome, dear soul. Tonight, you are not alone. In this moment, allow my voice to be a gentle companion, soft, steady, and ever-present, as we embark on a peaceful journey together. Whatever has happened today, whatever you've carried in your heart or held in your mind, you can now lay it down. You've arrived at a place where time slows, where the only sound is the rhythm of your breath and the steady beat of calmness beneath it. This is your time. Your space. Your sanctuary. And here, you are safe. Tonight, I invite you into a story that was born from a simple, heartfelt request, one that stirred a quiet memory and planted the seed of something new. It began with a listener, much like you, who asked for a story about a hut by the sea. And as the words settled in my mind, I remembered an old series I once told, about a woman named Hope, who lived alone in the woods. A woman who taught us the art of solitude, of listening, of healing. Now, from the echoes of her story, emerges a new voice, a man named Cliff, who chose a life by the shore. This is his world. And perhaps, it will become yours too. So breathe with me now. Slowly. Inhale, and feel the air fill your body. Exhale, and let go of anything that doesn't serve you. We'll begin, not in the rush of daylight, but in the hush of early dawn, when the world still belongs to the dreamers. The first light of morning stretches across a quiet beach, casting golden hues onto a sea that stirs gently in its slumber. Cliff sits there, just where the tide kisses the shore, cross-legged on the sand still warm from yesterday's sun. He's not in a hurry. There is no clock ticking. No alarms. No deadlines. Just the slow, unhurried breath of the earth itself, rising and falling with the waves. Behind him stands a modest hut, hand-built from driftwood and palm leaves, strong in its simplicity. It leans slightly to one side, as if listening to the ocean's whispers. It is not grand, but it is home. It is enough. Cliff's face is calm, his expression soft. His hair is tousled by the breeze, his hands rest lightly on his knees, and his eyes are fixed on the horizon. He watches the sun rise, not for spectacle, but for stillness. For the feeling it brings him, the quiet affirmation that he is where he's meant to be. Each morning begins like this. With stillness. With awe. He reaches beside him for a small clay mug, still warm from the tea he brewed just moments before. He takes a sip. The warmth spreads through him, grounding him further. The tea is made with leaves he foraged the day before. It's slightly earthy, with a hint of citrus and something unnameable, something wild and soft and green. The taste of peace. This moment, for Cliff, is a ritual. A sacred pause before the day unfolds. There's no rush to move, no voice commanding him to go faster, think harder, achieve more. The world he left behind, the world of boardrooms and blinking screens and the endless hunger for more, it feels far away now. Like another life lived by another man. Here, on this beach, time is measured not in hours but in moments of meaning. The tide creeps forward, inch by inch, washing over the sand and gently curling around his feet. He lets it. The water is cool, like a sigh against his skin. Somewhere in the distance, a gull calls out, not harshly, but as if greeting him. Good morning, Cliff. He smiles softly. He doesn't speak. Not yet. The morning is for listening. Behind him, the beach hut creaks lightly as it settles in the warming breeze. It's made entirely from what the sea has offered, wood smoothed by salt and sun, bits of rope, shells, stones. Cliff spent weeks building it. Not because he needed perfection, but because he needed presence. Every plank nailed into place was an intention. A choice to live differently. To be deliberate. To be still. After another slow sip of tea, he reaches for his journal. It's weathered now, the leather soft and worn at the edges. Pages filled with his thoughts, his reflections, his gratitude. He opens to a fresh page and writes in large, even strokes, Day 752. He pauses, staring at the number. 752 days since he walked away from the city. From a job that drained him. From a life that looked perfect on the outside but felt empty on the inside. Cliff had always done what was expected. He studied hard. Got the degree. Landed the job. Climbed the ladder. But somewhere along the way, he lost his voice. His laughter. His light. And then, one day, something cracked. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even loud. It was a quiet moment in an elevator, just him, staring at his reflection in the mirrored walls, and not recognizing the man looking back. That was the moment. That was when he decided to leave. He didn't run away. He walked. Slowly, steadily, into something new. Something real. And now, 2 years later, he sits on a beach, writing about nothing and everything all at once. The sun is warm today, he writes. The tide is gentle. I feel quiet. But not empty. Just, peaceful. He closes the journal and places it carefully beside him. He doesn't need to say more. Some feelings don't need many words. The breeze picks up slightly, rustling the tall dune grasses behind the hut. The smell of salt and sand and sun drift toward him, mingling with the lingering steam from his tea. Cliff breathes it in like it's a gift. And in many ways, it is. He stands slowly, stretching his arms above his head. His body feels good, loose, strong, grateful. He walks barefoot across the sand, feeling each grain beneath his feet, each tiny shift and give. There's something meditative in the movement. Something healing in the way the earth responds to him with softness. The beach stretches in both directions, endless and quiet. He knows every inch of it, the places where the shells cluster, the spots where sea glass sometimes washes up, the rocks that shimmer gold in the right light. He doesn't own any of it. But it all belongs to him in the way that nature belongs to those who honor it. As he walks, he hums softly, a tune he doesn't remember learning, but one that always seems to rise in his throat at this hour. Maybe it's something the ocean taught him. Maybe it's something he always knew. He walks past a small driftwood sculpture he built weeks ago. A spiral tower of sea-smoothed sticks, balanced carefully atop one another. It still stands, untouched by wind or tide. He smiles at it. A quiet reminder that beauty doesn't always need purpose. Sometimes, it just needs presence. In the distance, he spots movement, just a flicker. A bird, perhaps. Or maybe Carl, out for her early walk. But he doesn't call out. Not yet. There's time. There's always time. And as the sun climbs higher, painting the sea in deeper blues, Cliff feels a warmth inside him that has nothing to do with the light. It's the warmth of contentment. Of having enough. Of being enough. This is his life. His morning. His peace. And tonight, dear listener, as you listen to Cliff's morning unfold, let his peace become yours. Let the rhythm of his breath sync with yours. Let his stillness reach across the sand and sea and settle gently over you. You are here now. You are safe. You are already drifting. The morning has fully awakened now, stretching its golden fingers across the sea. The sunlight no longer creeps, it glows with quiet confidence, bathing the sand in warmth. Cliff makes his way back to the hut, his bare feet leaving gentle impressions behind him, footprints that the tide will soon erase. But he doesn't mind. Here, nothing is permanent, and that impermanence feels like freedom. As he approaches the hut, a small sound greets him, a soft rustling, a sleepy stretch. Luna is awake. She sits on the edge of the porch, blinking slowly, her tiny ears flicking at the breeze. She lets out a yawn so wide her little pink tongue curls, then gazes up at Cliff with sleepy, trusting eyes. "Good morning, girl," he murmurs, his voice barely louder than the waves behind him. She rises to her feet, tail twitching, and trots over. Cliff kneels and lets her rub against his arm. There's something deeply comforting about this simple routine. Cliff never expected to find a companion when he moved here. Luna came to him one evening, skittish and thin, drawn perhaps by the smell of fish or the safety of his fire. At first, she kept her distance. But over time, trust grew between them like a sapling, slow, steady, rooted in patience. Now, they are inseparable. He prepares her breakfast first, small scoops into her favorite ceramic bowl, the one painted with tiny blue fish. Luna eats slowly, delicately. Cliff smiles as he watches her. The act of caring for her, of being needed by something so gentle and pure, brings a quiet joy that he never knew he was missing. After feeding Luna, Cliff moves into his morning tasks, not chores, exactly, but rituals of groundedness. He picks up a hand-woven broom and begins sweeping the sand that's drifted into the hut overnight. The rhythmic sound of bristles brushing against the wooden floor fills the space. There's something meditative about it, the way his body moves in harmony with a purpose so simple. With each stroke, he clears not just the sand, but the lingering fog of thoughts that try to linger at the edges of his calm. Once the hut is clean, he opens the small wooden cabinet where his few belongings live. A folded blanket, a coil of rope, a pouch of dried herbs. He checks everything, not out of need, but out of gratitude. To make sure each item, each modest possession, is where it belongs. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing is excess. Everything has meaning. He steps outside again and takes a seat on the porch steps. From here, he can see the full sweep of the bay. The water shimmers like melted glass, reflecting the clear sky above. Tiny fish occasionally leap, breaking the surface with a glint and a splash. The breeze carries with it the faint, salty scent of seaweed and brine, mixed with the sweetness of coastal flowers growing in the dunes. Cliff closes his eyes and just listens. The waves, the wind, the distant calls of seabirds, it all creates a natural symphony, a composition that asks nothing from him but presence. No thinking. No fixing. Just listening. He remembers how strange silence used to feel in the beginning. When he first arrived, the absence of constant noise was jarring. The city had trained him to fill every moment, with music, with messages, with motion. But here, silence was not empty. It was alive. Full of breath and movement and sound, if only one knew how to hear it. Cliff opens his eyes and inhales deeply. The morning is still young. He decides to forage a bit. Along the base of the cliffs near the northern edge of the beach, wild herbs sometimes grow, shaded by stone and fed by mist. He gathers a small basket, woven from palm fronds, and sets off with Luna trotting behind him. The walk is quiet, save for the crunch of his feet on sand and the occasional splash of a small crab skittering back into the surf. They pass by tall reeds that sway in rhythm, almost as if they're dancing to a song only they can hear. Cliff smiles at that thought. This place has a way of making you see the world differently. Not as static, but as alive. Responsive. Sacred. They reach the cliffs, towering and majestic, their faces etched with time. At the base, the ground changes. The sand gives way to moist earth, covered in soft moss and patches of delicate green. Cliff kneels and begins to search gently. He finds lemon balm, its scent bright and calming. A few stalks of wild mint. Some tiny violet blossoms, edible and sweet. As he gathers, Luna perches nearby on a rock, watching him. The light filters through the overhanging branches, casting dappled shadows on the ground. A butterfly flutters past, almost close enough to touch. Once his basket is full, Cliff stands and surveys the scene once more. The cliffs rise up behind him, steadfast and proud. The sea stretches before him, endless and inviting. Between them, he stands in perfect balance, part of both, belonging to both. They walk slowly back to the hut, the sun now higher in the sky, the air warmer. Cliff feels a light sweat forming on his brow, not unpleasant, just another reminder of his body and its connection to the earth. He wipes it away with a cloth and continues on. Back at the hut, he places the herbs on a drying rack and fetches a small pitcher of cool water from the storage barrel. He pours himself a glass, sips slowly, and feels the refreshment travel all the way down. There is no rush to do anything else. Time is not his master here. It is his companion. He looks at Luna, now curled up in a patch of shade beside the porch. Her breathing is slow, steady, peaceful. Cliff takes a seat beside her, stretches out his legs, and leans back on his elbows. He watches the waves roll in. Watches the tide change. Watches the world continue turning, without noise, without fuss. And in that moment, something in him softens even more. This is a life of small wonders. Of deliberate slowness. Of deep, wordless gratitude. And it is enough. As you listen to Cliff's morning unfold, feel the calmness settle into your own body. Let his rhythm become yours. Let the quiet satisfaction of his movements guide your breath. You are here now. You are safe. You are already beginning to drift a little deeper. And the day is only just beginning. The sun now hovers high above the ocean, casting a golden shimmer over the water's surface like silk stretched thin and glowing. The waves are gentle, their rhythm as steady as a heartbeat, and the wind carries with it the warmth of midday, tinged with the coolness of the sea. Cliff feels it all as he sits quietly on his porch, arms draped loosely over his knees, watching as Luna naps in a shady patch beneath the hut steps. There is no urgency in his bones, no need to be anywhere else. He is entirely here. The beach has quieted further, if that's even possible. There's a hush in the air, an unspoken agreement between the earth and the sky to pause, just for a little while. It's a sacred kind of stillness, one that can only be felt when you're truly listening. Cliff stands and stretches again, arms reaching slowly overhead, spine lengthening, muscles unfurling like leaves in the morning sun. His body feels alive and rested, not because he has done nothing, but because he has done only what he needed. He rolls his shoulders, breathing in the briny air, and lets the exhale carry away anything lingering from the past. He steps into the hut and retrieves a small wooden box from a shelf, a simple case, carefully carved with swirls of ocean waves and small stars etched into the surface. Inside rests his fishing line, hooks, and a spool of thin twine. Cliff doesn't fish for sport, or even every day. But today, the sea has called softly, and he listens. Gathering the box and a small tin pail, he makes his way toward the outcropping of dark, jagged rocks that stretch out into the deeper water a short walk down the coast. This is his favorite fishing spot, not because it guarantees a catch, but because it guarantees solitude. The walk itself is calming, each footfall cushioned by the soft sand, each step part of a quiet dance with the earth beneath him. As he approaches the rocks, the sound of the sea shifts. The gentle lapping turns to a deeper, more resonant echo. Waves break against the stone, sending sprays of saltwater into the air, which sparkle in the sun like tiny floating stars. Cliff navigates the rocks with practiced ease, finding footholds and hand grips like old friends. He settles into a familiar hollow where the stone curves into a natural seat. From here, he can see far across the ocean, to where the water darkens and the horizon softens into mist. He ties his line with calm precision, slips a piece of bait onto the hook, and casts it out into the endless blue. The line arcs out and lands with a soft plunk, sending ripples across the surface. Cliff leans back, resting the rod in a notch between the rocks, and closes his eyes. He listens. Not just for a bite on the line, but for the moment itself, for the wind combing through the grasses behind him, for the caws of seabirds circling overhead, for the distant rustle of palm fronds dancing with the air. He doesn't think about catching anything. That's not the point. Fishing, for Cliff, is a meditation. A return. A slow, sacred wait. The minutes pass like waves, soft and unmeasured. A small tug on the line brings him back. He opens his eyes and smiles. Not excitement, not adrenaline, but a quiet recognition. A gift offered by the sea. He reels in carefully, hands steady, breath calm. The fish is small and silver, its scales gleaming in the sun. Enough for lunch. Enough to be grateful. He lowers the fish gently into the tin pail filled with seawater and takes a moment to thank the ocean aloud, his voice quiet and reverent. "Thank you," he says simply, placing a hand over his heart. Cliff stays for a while longer, watching the tides change. Then, with his catch in hand, he walks back to the hut. Luna is waiting for him on the porch, stretching lazily as he approaches. She trots over, sniffing the bucket with cautious curiosity, and then circles back to her shady spot, content with the simple rhythm of the day. Cliff prepares lunch slowly. He cleans the fish with careful hands, setting aside some of the scraps for Luna, who watches patiently from the side. The fire pit crackles back to life, sending a plume of smoke into the air that curls and drifts like a silent messenger toward the sky. He sears the fish on a flat stone, sprinkled with wild herbs he'd gathered earlier, and a small handful of salt from his pantry jar. The scent is earthy and rich, grounding him further in the present. When it's ready, he sits cross-legged on a woven mat and eats slowly, each bite savored, each flavor a reminder that he needs little to be satisfied. The crisp skin of the fish, the bright snap of mint leaves, the warmth of the fire, all of it is a celebration of enough. Luna nibbles on her portion, tail curled around her paws, occasionally pausing to lick her lips and glance up at him as if to say, "Yes, this is good. This is home." After the meal, Cliff rinses the dishes in a basin of collected rainwater, humming softly as he works. He takes pride in this task, not because it's impressive, but because it's his. There's a sacredness in tending to your own life, washing, sweeping, cooking, not as chores, but as acts of love. With his hands dried and the space tidied, Cliff returns to his porch. The sunlight now has a softer edge, a golden angle that hints at the turning of the day. The shadows lengthen across the sand, and the breeze picks up a cooler note. Luna is already nestled into a tight curl beside him, her breathing slow and deep. Cliff reaches once more for his journal, the spine creaking as he opens to a blank page. The words come easily this time, like water finding a familiar path. "Lunch was simple today," he writes. "The ocean gave me just what I needed. No more, no less. It always seems to know. And I trust it now, in a way I've never trusted anything before." He pauses and watches a single feather float down from above. It sways gently, caught in the breath of the wind, before settling on the sand just a few steps away. He smiles and adds to the page, even the smallest things, the way feathers fall, the way fire crackles, feel like messages. Like reminders. To slow down. To listen. To be. And in that moment, Cliff feels something shift in his chest, not a breaking, but an opening. A widening of space. An invitation to go even deeper into this piece. He places the journal aside and reclines gently on the mat. Luna shifts beside him, offering a quiet warmth. The two of them rest there, man and cat, wrapped in the soft golden stillness of a life lived gently. And you, dear listener, feel that warmth too. Let Cliff's rhythm echo within you. Let his silence become your sanctuary. There is no place to be. No task to complete. Only this moment, only this breath, only this peace. You are safe. You are still. And the afternoon drifts on. The sun begins its graceful descent across the sky, softening every color it touches. The once bright blue above has deepened into hues of honey and blush, the clouds tinged with lavender and rose. Cliff watches from his porch as the day starts to bow toward dusk. There's something sacred about this hour, as if the earth is whispering a lullaby to itself, slowing its pulse, softening its breath. He rises, his limbs relaxed from the restful afternoon, and gathers a towel, his journal, and a small flask of herbal tea he had left steeping beside the fire earlier. Luna watches with lazy eyes, her body curled like a crescent moon in her favorite corner of shade. Cliff leans down and runs a hand gently over her back. "Hold the fort," he says softly. The breeze greets him as he steps barefoot onto the sand. It brushes against his skin with a cooling softness, carrying with it the scent of salt and dusk. He walks slowly along the shoreline, the waves washing over his feet in quiet intervals. The sea is calm this evening, its surface like glass rippling in slow motion. As he moves, the world feels dreamlike. Every sound is gentle, every movement fluid. The tide sings in rhythm, gulls float silently overhead, and the sky melts into the sea in a soft gradient of coral and indigo. Cliff stops at his favorite spot along the beach, where the rocks dip gently into the shallows and the water deepens just enough to welcome a swim. He places his things carefully on a flat boulder that's still warm from the sun and steps forward, letting the water rise slowly up his legs. It's cool, but not jarring. Just enough to awaken his senses without disturbing his cow. He wades deeper until the water reaches his chest, then pushes off gently into a steady swim. His strokes are unhurried, more a glide than a motion. The water holds him, cradles him. Around him, the sun dips lower, casting golden ribbons across the surface. He floats on his back for a while, letting the sea rock him. The sky above stretches wide and open, and Cliff feels as if he's drifting in the center of the world, untethered, but never lost. This moment, he thinks, is one of those he will carry forever. A perfect stillness. A sense of connection not to a place or a person, but to something vast and quiet and whole. He swims for a little longer, letting the tension melt from his muscles, and when he returns to shore, he feels not tired but renewed. The swim has cleansed him, not just of the day's warmth, but of anything left over inside that needed to be gently washed away. He dries off slowly, the towel rough against his skin in a comforting way, like old fabric softened by years of sun and wind. He sips from the flask of tea, still warm, its flavor rich with herbs and honey, and watches as the horizon glows brighter in color even as the sun dips lower. Cliff sits on a nearby log and opens his journal. He writes, "The sea gave me silence today. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full. It doesn't ask questions or give answers. It just listens. It holds. And for the first time in a long time, I feel held." He sets the pen down, closes the journal, and simply sits. He doesn't need music, or distraction, or even thought. Just the sound of the tide, the scent of the sea, the warmth of the tea in his hands, and the growing hush of early evening. A soft sound behind him breaks the quiet, a gentle voice calling across the breeze. "Evening, Cliff." He turns and sees Carl approaching, her silhouette outlined by the glowing sky. She walks barefoot, a basket slung over her arm, her wind-tousled hair glowing like copper in the sunlight. Cliff raises a hand in greeting. "Evening, Carl," he replies with a smile. She joins him on the log, placing the basket between them. Inside are small pastries wrapped in cloth, the scent of baked cinnamon and fruit drifting up between them. "I thought you might be out here," she says, passing him one. "Figured you could use a little something sweet." Cliff takes it gratefully, the flaky crust still warm. "You always know," he says. "How do you do that?" Carl chuckles. "I guess I'm just getting to know the rhythms of this place. And yours too." They eat in silence for a while, side by side, watching the sea darken from gold to deep blue. The pastry is delicious, soft, with hints of berry and spice, the kind of flavor that tastes like home, like memory, like kindness. After a few minutes, Carl speaks again. "Do you ever think about the first night you got here?" Cliff nods, still gazing out at the water. "I do. All the time, actually. I was scared, if I'm honest. Scared I'd made a mistake. That I'd be lonely. That I'd miss everything I'd left behind. And did you? She asks. He pauses, then shakes his head slowly. No. Not for long. I missed the comfort of routine at first. The noise, even. But then, the silence became more familiar. More like a friend. And eventually, I started hearing myself again. The parts of me I'd forgotten were there. Carl smiles. That's how I felt too. This place, it holds you. But it also opens you. They fall quiet again, listening to the sea, the birds, the creaking of the tide-worn logs beneath them. The last edge of sun finally dips below the horizon, and the world exhales. A soft coolness settles into the air. Carl stands, brushing the sand from her skirt. There's a fire later, she says. Up by the dunes. Bring Luna. I'm bringing my wind chimes. Cliff nods. Wouldn't miss it. Carl begins to walk back down the beach, her basket swinging gently at her side. Cliff watches her go until her silhouette melts into the twilight. Then, he turns back to the sea. The stars are beginning to blink into view, one by one. And the moon, just a sliver tonight, hangs low and silver above the waves. He gathers his things, takes one last long breath of the ocean air, and begins to walk slowly back to his hut, his soul quiet, his heart full. And as Cliff's footsteps press softly into the cool sand, you, dear listener, may feel your breath slow even further. You may feel the warmth of his presence, the rhythm of the waves, the sweetness of dusk settling gently into your chest. You are safe. You are resting. And evening has just begun. The light has faded now, replaced by a velvet dusk wrapped around the shoreline. The stars shimmer in their quiet majesty, appearing not all at once, but in gentle intervals, like tiny lanterns being lit in the heavens one by one. The moon glows higher now, its crescent casting a silver thread across the dark ocean, a pathway that seems to stretch into the soul. Cliff walks slowly along the sand, a woven blanket draped over one shoulder, a small bundle of driftwood under his arm, and a flask of tea cradled in his hand. His heart feels full, warm, quietly buzzing from the peaceful rhythm of the day. There's a hush in the air, a kind of sacred pause that precedes every meaningful gathering. Ahead, he sees the faint flicker of firelight dancing in the distance, golden flames licking gently at the air near the dunes. As he approaches the bonfire site, the scene begins to bloom into view. The fire has already been built by careful hands, tall enough to warm the night, low enough to preserve the intimacy. Around it, familiar figures move about slowly, laying down blankets, tending to mugs of warm drink, and softly speaking with the hush that nighttime invites. Carl is there, of course, her wind chimes tucked under one arm, clinking softly as she walks. Marco sits nearby, tuning a worn acoustic guitar with a focused smile. Others, Isla, Tom, Nico, and May, sit close together, passing around a bowl of roasted nuts and dried fruit, laughter gently sparking between them like tiny embers. Evening, Cliff, Carl calls with a smile, her voice as warm as the fire. Evening, he replies, stepping closer and adding his bundle of driftwood to the pile beside the flames. He lays out his blanket and settles down next to Carl. Luna arrives moments later, having followed from a few paces behind, and curls beside him with a satisfied sigh. The firelight dances across their faces, painting them in hues of amber and shadow. Around them, the soft murmur of conversation rises and falls like the tide, never loud, never hurried. Marco strums his guitar, the notes low and slow, threading through the air like smoke. His song isn't one anyone recognizes, yet it feels like a memory. Like something everyone has known deep in their bones. Someone passes a mug of spiced cider to Cliff, the ceramic warm between his palms. He sips, feeling the blend of cinnamon, apple, and honey melt into his chest. A kind of quiet joy blooms there, not loud, not overwhelming, just enough to make his breath deepen, his body loosen. Around the fire, stories begin to weave themselves into the evening. Isla speaks of a time she found a message in a bottle, an actual message, faded and salt-stained, sealed with wax. It said only one thing, she shares, her eyes reflecting the fire. Be still. You're already home. I've kept it ever since. Tom tells a tale of a night he spent beneath a thunderstorm, curled in a cave while lightning painted the ocean with silver. It was the first time I realized that fear and awe were sometimes the same feeling, he says. Laughter follows. Not loud, but whole. The kind of laughter that bubbles up from a place of shared understanding, of being fully seen. Here, among these people, Cliff feels something rare, a community born not from proximity, but from intention. Each person here chose this life. Chose stillness. Chose simplicity. And in doing so, they found each other. Carl sets up her wind chimes near a driftwood post, and as the breeze picks up ever so slightly, the delicate clinking adds its voice to the night's chorus. The sound is airy, crystalline, a lullaby made of metal and wind. Marco shifts his melody, playing something even softer now, and the group falls into a comfortable silence. Cliff leans back on his elbows, sipping his cider and gazing at the stars. Above them, the sky stretches endlessly, glittering with constellations he's learned to recognize, Orion, Cassiopeia, the quiet arc of the Milky Way. Carl nudges him gently with her shoulder. What are you thinking about? She asks. Cliff doesn't answer right away. He lets the question sit, like a pebble settling at the bottom of a clear stream. Then he replies, voice low and thoughtful, just, how rare this is. This feeling. The quiet. The closeness. I think I spent most of my life chasing something that looked a lot like success. But it never felt like this. Never felt whole. Carl nods. I used to fill my days so full that I never stopped to ask if any of it mattered. And now, I find that the things that matter the most are the ones I never thought to chase, like watching the firelight flicker on someone's face. Or hearing the waves between sentences. Their words trail off, replaced by shared stillness. The kind of silence that only happens between people who are completely comfortable being quiet together. Across the fire, Nico begins to hum, just a few soft notes. It's barely there, but it carries. Others pick it up gently, adding harmony in the form of a whispered tone or a gentle rhythm tapped on the knee. The group isn't a choir. They aren't practiced. But together, they sound like belonging. And the stars, the wind, the ocean, they all seem to listen. Cliff rests back fully now, his eyes half closed, the firelight glowing behind his lids. Luna shifts closer, her purring a soft, steady vibration against his side. And you, dear listener, as you sit by this fire in your imagination, perhaps you feel the warmth, too. The soft pressure of earth beneath you. The hum of connection wrapping around your shoulders like a blanket. You belong here. You are part of this quiet circle. There is no need to speak. You are heard. You are seen. As the fire begins to burn lower and the music drifts off into silence, the group doesn't rush to leave. They linger in the glow, in the stillness. A few stand and hug quietly. A few offer soft goodnights. The flames crackle their final song. And slowly, gently, the gathering begins to dissolve, like stars disappearing behind morning light. Cliff remains for a moment longer, watching the final embers flicker and fade. He feels no sadness in their ending, only gratitude that they burned at all. He gathers his blanket, his flask, and gently rouses Luna. Together, they begin the short walk home beneath a sky still glowing with the memory of firelight and song. The night is deep now. The air cool. The world at rest. And as Cliff walks with slow, quiet steps along the moonlit beach, you too may feel yourself walking beside him. Each breath a step. Each heartbeat a hush. You are held by the night. You are part of this peace. And sleep is just a few moments away. The night has fully unfolded now, wrapping the world in a quiet, protective cloak. The moon casts a silver shimmer on the surface of the sea, like a whispered promise from the sky. The stars have multiplied, scattering across the heavens in perfect stillness, as though they too have paused to rest. Cliff walks slowly along the shore, each footstep a soft imprint in the cool sand. He carries his blanket loosely over his shoulder, the faint scent of firewood still lingering in its folds. Luna walks close beside him, her tail flicking lightly against his ankle now and then, like a thread that tethers them gently together in the dark. The bonfire is long behind them, but its warmth remains, carried in his chest like an ember, small and steady. His mind doesn't race. It doesn't reach forward or backward. It simply floats, quiet and open, like a leaf adrift on a stream. As he approaches the hut, he can just make out its outline against the darkened dunes. The roofline curves slightly, as though bowing to the sea. A single lantern glows faintly in the window, casting a pool of gold onto the porch. It is a welcome light. A quiet homecoming. Cliff climbs the steps and opens the door. The hut greets him with the soft creak of wood and the familiar, grounding scent of sea salt and cedar. He places the blanket on a nearby hook and sets the empty flask in the wash basin. Luna hops lightly onto her small woven mat in the corner, curling into a tight crescent, her breathing already beginning to slow. Cliff moves slowly, with intention. He changes into a soft cotton shirt and lightweight trousers, his nighttime clothes, worn and beloved. He lights a candle on the small table beside the window, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows across the walls. Then he pours himself a small cup of water, takes a slow sip, and sets it down. He moves through the hut quietly, checking each thing, not out of need, but out of habit. The broom tucked neatly behind the door. The fire pit embers smoldering safely outside. The small pile of books stacked beside his hammock. He walks onto the porch and sits in his hammock for a moment without lying back. Just sitting. Just breathing. The air is cooler now, but still soft. Still gentle. The stars above him are brighter than ever, and the moon has shifted slightly higher, following its quiet arc across the sky. The ocean continues its steady song, the hush and rush of waves moving like a lullaby that never ends. Cliff leans his head back and sighs, a long, slow exhale that feels like releasing something he hadn't realized he was holding. Not tension. Not worry. Just the weight of the day, gently letting go. He reaches for his journal once more. The page is blank and waiting. In the candlelight, he writes slowly. Tonight reminded me of why I chose this life. It isn't just the silence or the sea. It's the people. The fire. The shared laughter. The music that comes from nowhere and means everything. I never knew stillness could be so full. So alive. I feel, not alone. Even when I am. I feel connected. And that feels like peace. He closes the journal, places it beside him, and lets his hands rest in his lap. For a moment, he simply watches the moonlight glint off the surface of the sea. Somewhere far off, a gull calls softly, its voice distant and softened by the breeze. He leans back fully into the hammock, letting the fabric cradle his weight. His body sinks into the curve, supported completely. He draws the light blanket over himself, adjusting until every part of him feels held. Luna, sensing the shift in energy, steps quietly onto the porch and curls up at the base of the hammock. Her small body is a steady warmth, her breath rhythmic and reassuring. Together, they are wrapped in stillness. Cliff closes his eyes. His breath is slow now, deep and even. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. The world begins to dissolve at the edges, softening into shadow, into warmth, into weightlessness. His thoughts are not words anymore. They are feelings. Sensations. The memory of salt on his skin. The crackle of the fire. The echo of Carl's voice saying, "You're already home." He does not resist sleep. He does not chase it. He simply allows it, like a tide coming in, washing over the shore, smoothing the roughness of the day. And you, dear listener, as Cliff drifts, you may feel yourself drifting too. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let the story become a memory. You are wrapped in warmth. You are bathed in moonlight. You are part of the stillness now. You are safe. And as Cliff sleeps beneath the stars, lulled by the sound of waves and the softness of peace, so too can you fall, gently and completely, into rest. Let your breath guide you. Let your heart settle. Sleep is here. And you are home. The night has fully unfolded now, wrapping the world in a quiet, protective cloak. The moon casts a silver shimmer on the surface of the sea, like a whispered promise from the sky. The stars have multiplied, scattering across the heavens in perfect stillness, as though they too have paused to rest. Cliff walks slowly along the shore, each footstep a soft imprint in the cool sand. He carries his blanket loosely over his shoulder, the faint scent of firewood still lingering in its folds. Luna walks close beside him, her tail flicking lightly against his ankle now and then, like a thread that tethers them gently together in the dark. The bonfire is long behind them, but its warmth remains, carried in his chest like an ember, small and steady. His mind doesn't race. It doesn't reach forward or backward. It simply floats, quiet and open, like a leaf adrift on a stream. As he approaches the hut, he can just make out its outline against the darkened dunes. The roofline curves slightly, as though bowing to the sea. A single lantern glows faintly in the window, casting a pool of gold onto the porch. It is a welcome light. A quiet homecoming. Cliff climbs the steps and opens the door. The hut greets him with the soft creak of wood and the familiar, grounding scent of sea salt and cedar. He places the blanket on a nearby hook and sets the empty flask in the wash basin. Luna hops lightly onto her small woven mat in the corner, curling into a tight crescent, her breathing already beginning to slow. Cliff moves slowly, with intention. He changes into a soft cotton shirt and lightweight trousers, his nighttime clothes, worn and beloved. He lights a candle on the small table beside the window, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows across the walls. Then he pours himself a small cup of water, takes a slow sip, and sets it down. He moves through the hut quietly, checking each thing, not out of need, but out of habit. The broom tucked neatly behind the door. The fire pit embers smoldering safely outside. The small pile of books stacked beside his hammock. He walks onto the porch and sits in his hammock for a moment without lying back. Just sitting. Just breathing. The air is cooler now, but still soft. Still gentle. The stars above him are brighter than ever, and the moon has shifted slightly higher, following its quiet arc across the sky. The ocean continues its steady song, the hush and rush of waves moving like a lullaby that never ends. Cliff leans his head back and sighs, a long, slow exhale that feels like releasing something he hadn't realized he was holding. Not tension. Not worry. Just the weight of the day, gently letting go. He reaches for his journal once more. The page is blank and waiting. In the candlelight, he writes slowly. Tonight reminded me of why I chose this life. It isn't just the silence or the sea. It's the people. The fire. The shared laughter. The music that comes from nowhere and means everything. I never knew stillness could be so full. So alive. I feel, not alone. Even when I am. I feel connected. And that feels like peace. He closes the journal, places it beside him, and lets his hands rest in his lap. For a moment, he simply watches the moonlight glint off the surface of the sea. Somewhere far off, a gull calls softly, its voice distant and softened by the breeze. He leans back fully into the hammock, letting the fabric cradle his weight. His body sinks into the curve, supported completely. He draws the light blanket over himself, adjusting until every part of him feels held. Luna, sensing the shift in energy, steps quietly onto the porch and curls up at the base of the hammock. Her small body is a steady warmth, her breath rhythmic and reassuring. Together, they are wrapped in stillness. Cliff closes his eyes. His breath is slow now, deep and even. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. The world begins to dissolve at the edges, softening into shadow, into warmth, into weightlessness. His thoughts are not words anymore. They are feelings. Sensations. The memory of salt on his skin. The crackle of the fire. The echo of Carl's voice saying, "You're already home." He does not resist sleep. He does not chase it. He simply allows it, like a tide coming in, washing over the shore, smoothing the roughness of the day. And you, dear listener, as Cliff drifts, you may feel yourself drifting too. Let your body soften. Let your thoughts grow quiet. Let the story become a memory. You are wrapped in warmth. You are bathed in moonlight. You are part of the stillness now. You are safe. And as Cliff sleeps beneath the stars, lulled by the sound of waves and the softness of peace, so too can you fall, gently and completely, into rest. Let your breath guide you. Let your heart settle. Sleep is here. And you are home. The night has ripened into its quietest hour. Even the ocean, once a lullaby of movement, seems to have slowed. Its waves hush against the shore with the gentleness of breath. The stars overhead still shine, but now, faint traces of light begin to stretch their fingers along the horizon. A whisper of silver. A shimmer of violet. The first promise of dawn. Cliff lies peacefully in his hammock, eyes still closed, his chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. His dreams have quieted now, settled into soft images too tender for words. They drift like feathers through his sleeping mind, memories, symbols, echoes of the day, all gently melting into rest. Luna, ever faithful, remains curled at the foot of the hammock, her breathing deep and content. Occasionally her ear flicks, responding to some sound only she can hear, the creak of the wind, the rustle of dune grass, the soft shift of sand. And slowly, quietly, the new day begins to bloom. A faint breeze brushes against Cliff's skin, cool and scented with the dew of sea mist. It stirs something in him, not urgency, not wakefulness, just a soft awareness that the world is still turning. He opens his eyes slightly, not to get up, but to see. To witness the sky's gentle transformation. Above, the darkness is lifting. The stars begin to fade, one by one, not extinguished, but released. The moon has lowered toward the sea, bowing out with grace. And the sky, oh, the sky, is a canvas of renewal, lavender melting into coral, pale gold streaking across blue like ink in water. Cliff does not move. He lies still, arms at his sides, gaze tilted toward the heavens. His body is rested, his breath easy. And in his heart, there is no thought of what needs to be done. Only what is. The hush of this moment is sacred. A rare kind of stillness that only exists between night and day. It is not sleep. It is not waking. It is something in between. A liminal space where the soul can stretch, slowly, quietly, without fear. He listens. To the distant hum of insects stirring in the dunes. To the soft flap of wings overhead as a night bird returns to its perch. To the faint lapping of the waves, kissing the shore with reverence. Cliff feels everything and nothing all at once. Not as a weight, but as a truth. A presence. He thinks of his journal, still sitting on the porch table, but he does not reach for it. Some moments are not meant to be written. Some are meant to be lived in full silence. He closes his eyes again, not to return to sleep, but to let the light touch his skin before it touches his mind. And you, dear listener, perhaps you feel that light too. Not as brightness, but as warmth. As the promise of another day where nothing must be rushed. Where your worth is not tied to what you do, but simply who you are. You are here. You have breathed through the night, side by side with Cliff, with Luna, with the ocean and the stars. And now, as the world turns quietly toward morning, you remain safe. Soft. Whole. There is no need to rise yet. The body rests best in slowness. The mind heals best in stillness. The heart blossoms best in quiet light. Cliff sighs, long and deep, a sound of release rather than fatigue. He smiles, not for anyone, not for any reason, but because the dawn feels like love. And being here, alive and held by the world, feels like enough. He shifts slightly, turning onto his side in the hammock, pulling the blanket a little higher, letting the cool breeze kiss his cheek. Luna curls tighter, her tail draping across her nose. And once more, the hut returns to silence. The first bird begins to sing. Just one note, suspended in the early light like a bead of dew. Then another joins. Then another. A chorus begins to form, delicate and slow. The sky brightens. But you, dear listener, are still wrapped in sleep's gentle arms. This is your moment to remain. You don't need to wake. You don't need to move. You are carried, now, by rest. Just as Cliff is carried by the morning. And when you do rise, later, much later, you will carry this peace with you. The stillness of the beach. The warmth of the fire. The quiet friendships. The tender solitude. The breath of the sea. But for now, stay here. Let the waves hold your thoughts. Let the morning hold your dreams. Let your soul remain where it is weightless and loved. You are safe. You are cherished. You are home. And sleep still surrounds you. Breathe in. And out. No need to let go. Everything that matters is already within you. Good night. And good morning. You are free to rest. You are free to be.